final countdown of PokeMonth, and I suppose the only appropriate way to finish this is with a big finale. In this countdown, I will be ranking all 18 of the Pokemon types in this series from my least favorite to my favorite, and also discussing my favorite Pokemon from each type. Now, let me preface that how I've ranked these types is based on my experiences with them, how much I've used them, and how effective they've been as I've used them. There is no type that I fully dislike. Every type has some shining stars and strong points, as well as some lackluster entries and low points. This is just how I rank each of the types. Feel free to disagree with me. Just a fair warning, strap yourself in for a long countdown. Okay, let's start this off! Perhaps a bit of an obvious choice, but I find the Ice type to be my least favourite type. While it certainly has some strong points, I feel that the positives of the type are outweighed by its negatives. Ice is only super effective against Grass, Flying, Ground, and Dragon, all of which have more common and honestly more effective weaknesses than Ice. Having 4 weaknesses with some of them being very common types doesn't help, and having only a resistance to itself makes it even less usable. In terms of Ice-type Pokemon, there are some shining stars, but there are also quite a lot of weaker and less effective Ice types to go with them. The ones who do shine mostly shine due to their additional typing, and the final nail in the coffin is that it's quite rare to have an Ice type until you are decently far into the game, where you already have strong Pokemon of other types. The main benefit I see out of Ice types is their attacks like Ice Beam or Blizzard are great coverage moves to teach your non-Ice type Pokemon. Alright, let's look at the negatives and meet my favorite Ice type. Walrein. Man, I love this thing. Walrein was a member of my team in my childhood playing my most nostalgic Pokemon game, Ruby, and I adored using it. Starting with a really cute little Sceptile, which evolved into this beastly monster, was fantastic. He looks majestic right off the bat with his long flowing facial hair and manly ass tucks. It's almost downright sexy for a fat walrus. Maybe that's a touch far. While the consensus is that Walrein wasn't so great in Ruby and Sapphire, I always found him to be a useful and awesome member of my team. But maybe his awesomeness was just in my head. Whatever. Now, on to Walrein as a Pokemon. Walrein is typically given the nickname Stallrein, because despite being an Ice type, this thing is far from frail. This is due to him also being part water, eliminating 2 of his key weaknesses while unfortunately adding 2. But it's not too big of a loss. This thing is quite capable of taking attacks all day long due to his Great Ball and Thick Fat or Ice Body ability, making him a potential pain to take down. But he's more than just a wall. Walrein can hold his own in the offensive department, with similar attack and special attack stats and access to moves such as Surf, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Earthquake, Rollout, Crunch, and Rock Slide. It's not the most impressive Pokemon, but it certainly gets the job done. And I kinda like it for nostalgia reasons. Doesn't everybody have Pokemon that they find nostalgic? Rock types always seemed a touch odd to me. From their name, I always thought that they should be really tough and hard to take down, but every time I went up against one, they fell over like a cardboard cutout. I think it's kinda due to how the majority of rock types have incredibly low special defense stats, and 2 of their key weaknesses are water and grass, which makes them utterly useless in the face of them, especially due to how early on, they are commonly paired with ground types. They also have 3 other weaknesses to ground, fighting, and steel, and while they are physically defensive, still take massive damage from them. Offensively, they're decent enough, but most of the great rock type moves come with some crappy penalties, like Stone Edge's low accuracy, or Head Smash's recoil, or Rock Wrecker's having to wait a turn after its use. It's far from a useless type though. There are some fantastic Pokemon that are rock types, and if you look at most players' teams, you will always see at least one rock type move, due to their effectiveness against a lot of types. And now, my favourite rock type has to be the mountain climbing, heavy armoured dinosaur of the Hoenn region. Oh hell yeah, it's motherfucking Aggron. Just saying that name is goddamn manly. This rock type is an utterly fearsome beast. When a Pokemon is spouting a 110 attack stat and 180 defense before Mega Evolving, you should be ready to get wrecked, son. Aggron's Rock Steel type paves the way for his utter physical bulk, which is unfortunately hindered by his 4x weakness to fighting ground, but whatever, and to his 2 powerful stab types. Aggron's offensive capabilities are easily shown with moves such as Iron Head, Iron Tail, Heavy Slam, Stone Edge, Head Smash, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Aqua Tail, Break Break, Outrage, Dragon Rush, Superpower, and all the elemental punches. Jesus, that's a list! He can also show off his defensive and support side with moves like Iron Defense, Curse, Stealth Rocks, and Roar, and can even boost his offensive power with Autotomize and Hone Claws. Other than the stupid ability Heavy Metal, his abilities can either let him survive any one-hit KO or remove recoil damage from all his moves. And with his Mega Evolution, he gives up his Rock type, making him an unfortunate choice for the list to improve his bulk, gets a huge boost to his high stats, and gets Filter for an ability to lower the damage of all super effective moves. And most importantly, he looks awesome as shit. God, this is a good Pokemon. Jesus Christ. The newest type added into the series with Generation 6 was the Fairy type, and most people looked on in extreme skepticism. But when the Fairy types hit the scene, they changed so much. Being the series' now official Dragon Slayers with an immunity to their attacks and being super effective against them, as well as finally giving people reasons to be packing Poison and Steel type Pokemon moves to counter them, these little pixies changed so much of the Pokemon metagame. But the reason I'm ranking them so low is I haven't really had the chance to get truly attached to them as a type. Don't get me wrong, there are certainly some Fairy types that I love, but most of them are pre-existing Pokemon who were given that type either through Mega Evolution or through permanent type changes. And some of the new Fairy types, while I like them, still don't compare to my other favorites. And there certainly are some Fairy types that don't shine very well. I guess if I experiment with a few more Fairy types, I might like them more, but for now, they don't interest me that much. Now onto my favorite Fairy type, which is a Pokemon that is known very well among the fanbase. Oh yeah, I love Gardevoir. No, not like that. Get that smut off the screen. I don't need this video getting flagged. Like I was saying, I love Gardevoir as a Pokemon, not as a waifu. Being given the Fairy type works wonders with her already existing Psychic type, eliminating her weakness to Dark types in exchange for a weakness to Poison, which isn't too worrying thanks to her Psychic type, and a weakness to Steel, which frankly is a little unfortunate. Gardevoir was along the lines of Mareep in Gold and Silver. It was a really good Pokemon you could catch early on that was good in almost every battle she was in, and was really good at providing coverage for your team, and everyone grew to love her because of that. And with the introduction of her new Fairy type, her possibilities are reborn with new moves and a different set of capabilities. I tend to refer to Gardevoir as a her more often than not because frankly she looks like one, and she's a differing male evolution, so calling Gardevoir a her just makes sense. Her design makes her look graceful and beautiful, and her Pokemon description saying that she can sense the emotions of her trainers as well as give her life for them if needed makes me love her even more. No! And in battle she can come packing moves like Psychic, Moonblast, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Energy Ball, and Focus Blast, as well as a pretty damn good special attack stat, making her a real potential threat or asset on the battlefield. And she was lucky enough to get a Mega Evolution with even better stats to battle with. But her design is a little weird, almost like a... God damn it. One of the most common types in all the games, and the most common type you'll see early game, we have normal types. Normal types are kinda weird. They're not super effective against anything, and other than an immunity to Ghost and a weakness to fighting, they take neutral damage from everything. On top of that, Ghosts are also immune to them, and Steel and Rock types resist them. So, it's kinda weird, yeah. The main draw of normal types is that commonly they have the widest move pool of any type. They can learn a variety of moves of almost any type, giving them great levels of diversity in assembling movesets and strategies. And while normal type moves aren't super effective against any other type, some of the most powerful normal type moves are still used by other Pokemon, like Facade, Body Slam, Fake Out, Extreme Speed, and Explosion. And status moves like Protect, Pain Split, Substitute, Sword Stance, Belly Drum, Baton Pass, and tons of recovery moves are also used by other Pokemon. While normal type Pokemon are typically not fantastic, their variety of movesets and their plethora of useful moves that can be used by other types makes them pretty cool. Now, my favorite normal type is a Pokemon I've talked about in 2 of my 3 prior countdowns, and I really do like this thing. Oh yeah, son, it's the lazy-ass kick-ass sloth Slaking. This is kinda a weird choice considering that Slaking is hampered by one of the worst abilities in the entire series, Truant. Only letting him use the move once every 2 turns, allowing him to be easily walled by anything that has a protect move or fly or dig or dive or something like that. But despite that, I really like this thing. It's actually pretty damn underrated in my opinion. I mean, when you face off against this thing in Norman's gym, you fear it. First of all, holy shit, his stats are insane. There's a reason he has a crap ability like Truant, because otherwise he would be too powerful and be utterly unstoppable. With a whopping 160 attack stat and a surprising 100 speed stat for how lazy a Pokemon it's meant to be, this thing is deadly when it comes to physical attacks, ripping apart even some of the best defenders in the game with that kind of power, and has an insane move pool befitting a normal type, such as Return, Giga Impact, Earthquake, Brick Break, Aerial Ace, Shadow Claw, Rock Slide, Hammer Arm, Night Slash, and, like Aggron, all the elemental punches. His moveset is so damn diverse and powerful that he can take on almost any opponent. Only thing that holds him back is his unfortunate ability. But if his ability is replaced with something else, he is one of the most deadly Pokemon in the entire series. And I've been unfortunate enough to face one like that. Screw you, Evis. Hate you so much. This is a pretty popular type to my knowledge, sort of in the main fanbase and quite a bit in the metagame, and that type is Fighting. This type may be good and all, but I never actually liked it terribly much. A lot of fighting types in the original games I've played tend to be fully musty, which I tend to find a little bit unappealing, and some of them are just plain ugly to look at. I mean, look at the early fighting types. They're a little for my taste. But there's a reason people like fighting types. Fighting types are almost always about physical offense, spouting large physical attack sets and come with moves that reach incredibly high numbers of power. They're the only types super effective against normal types, and also fare well against Ice, Rock, Steel, and Dark types, but they struggle against Flying types and are practically helpless against Psychic and now Fairy types. For me at least, I just feel that there are just a ton of various pros and cons with the fighting types, and the whole mixture makes them a little unappealing. Nowadays there are plenty of fighting types I like, but a lot of them seem really meh. But my favourite fighting type would probably have to be the desert-dwelling hoodlum of the Unova region, Scrafty. First of all, just look at this thing. I just love it. He's looking like a fool with his pants on the ground. He's got low-hanging skin like a pair of pants, and has a frickin' hoodie to make him look like one of those gangster swagalicious hooligans. It's absolutely adorable. And if you've watched my top 100, you know that Scrafty is one of the members of my absolute favourite team that I've trained in any game. Foreshadowing? Anyway, Scrafty may not be the most impressive fighting type in the series, but not only do I think it has a lovable design, it can certainly get the job done. Its special attack may not be as high as other fighting types, but its Moxie ability makes up for that in spades, boosting its attack stat every time you knock out an opponent, and gave me a pseudo catchphrase that my friends hated hearing me say. You got Moxie, Scrafty, I like that! Scrafty is a good mixture of offense and defense with a fantastic learn set to support both assets. Attacking moves like High Jump Kick, Crunch, Head Smash, Dragon Claw, Stone Edge, Poison Jab, Drain Punch, Zen Butt, and once again, all the elemental punches to offer great physical coverage and power, as well as a number of status moves and setup moves to make it even more threatening, like Substitute, Dragon Dance, Swagger, Counter, Quick Guard, and Detect. With the introduction of Fairy types, however, Scrafty has taken a colossal blow in terms of effectiveness, but I love it regardless. It's adorable and silly design, it's great stats and moveset, and just overall my time spent using one of my favourite Pokemon teams I've ever trained, I can't help having an affection for this adorable little hoodlum. You swagheads wish you could be as swagalicious as this thing. Get on its level, scrub! The Bug type has a really crap time standing out in the series. Bug types are most typically incredibly weak and frail. A lot of them received early game and getting stamped on by most other types. So many types have resistances to their attacks and have very common weaknesses like fire, rock, and flying to sweep them under the rug. And in the first generation, they were a complete and utter joke, with the most powerful Bug type move having the same power as Tackle. But as times have gone on, Bug types have had time to shine. With the introduction of new, more powerful moves such as Mega Horn, X-Scissor, and Bug Buzz, as well as introducing Bug types that can seriously be considered threats given some great stats or an additional badass type, they're starting to be more prominent. And while a lot of Bug types are bad, when a Bug type is good, I mean, it's utterly amazing what it can do. Regardless of generation of bug types, they've always had a number of bugs with cool designs and even some cute bug types to go with them. Nowadays, I really do have a newfound respect and adoration for bug types, and the Pokemon that, for me at least, made bug types a formidable force was the buff as hell Hercules Beetle himself, Heracross. This impressive beetle was one of the gold and silver bug types along with Scizor that really allowed bug types to step out from their mediocrity into a full formidable force. First of all, he just looks freaking awesome. It's a pretty simple design to be fair, but the simplicity makes all the epicness of this Pokemon shine through. This jacked as shit beetle has an attack stat of a base 120 and a decent enough 85 speed stat to back it up. And if you have a Heracross with Guts or Moxie, its attack stat has a potential of utterly skyrocketing. In terms of its movesets, the one move you'll know is the most powerful bug type move in the game that Heracross uses so fantastically, Mega Horn. A bug type move with a whopping 120 base power, at the time a bug type equivalent of Fire Blast. And with Stab, Heracross can make excellent use of it. Having an additional fighting type works in its favour by giving it Stab, Close Combat, and Brick Break, as well as tons of coverage moves like Stone Edge, Earthquake, Aerial Ace, and Shadow Claw. Unfortunately though, Heracross suffers from the glaring flaw of having a 4 times weakness to flying, which most commonly outspeed it, but every Pokemon needs to have a flaw. In terms of my experience with Heracross, this thing is so damn good. Not only was my Heracross my Pokemon of choice against Clear's dickish Kingdra and Soul Silver, my Heracross managed to take down Lance's strongest Dragonite single-handedly despite the type disadvantage. It's fairly obvious that you do not mess with a Heracross, because it will tear you apart. Oh, and Heracross has a Mega as well. It's alright, I guess. But base Heracross will always be the king of the insect world. Grass types. One of the trio of types you receive at the beginning of almost every Pokemon game, and it's my least favourite. Don't get me wrong, grass types can be really awesome Pokemon. Typically they'll be a mixture of offense and defense and carry a multitude of status inflicting moves to make your opponent's life a living hell. And being super effective against water, rock, and ground types is a great asset to have. On top of that, some grass types look and play absolutely awesomely. My problem with them comes that they have such a high number of weaknesses. Their weaknesses including fire, flying, ice, bug, and poison. A lot of them being incredibly common types and quite common coverage moves that can effortlessly breeze through them. Also, a lot of grass types typically don't have the highest speed stats, letting them get knocked over like a sheet of paper by faster Pokemon. Despite this, I did like grass types more than I do now until I did a grass monotype run of white. Long story short, it was utterly painful to play through. So many fire types and fire type moves that I could do nothing against. But I still do enjoy using the type and feel that it really is a useful type. And for my favourite grass type starter, we have the agile tree gecko himself, Sceptile. I know to the heavens above that I am far from the only one that loves this thing. Look at how chill and cool this thing is. He doesn't care what you think. All he cares about is whether or not you get on his turf, and if you do, he'll beat the crap out of you. For quite a long time, this was the fastest starter Pokemon of them all. Unbefitting of a grass type, and even more unbefitting of a grass type, Sceptile doesn't really have access to any true status-inflicting moves. Instead, this thing is an utter devastating fast attacker, spending a special attack stat of 105 and a speed stat of 120. Sceptile was unfortunately a Pokemon that suffered a bit instead of benefiting from the physical special split, losing the effectiveness of moves like Leaf Blade, Dragon Claw, Crunch, and Thunder Punch, which made it deadly in Ruby and Sapphire, but even now is no slouch in the fighting department, with a plethora of grass-type moves like Giga Drain, Energy Ball, and Leaf Storm, and other special attacks like Dragon Pulse, Focus Blast, and Hidden Power? Sorry, that's about all Sceptile can utilize. The years have not been good to you, old buddy. Wait, scratch that. They have, thanks to Sceptile now receiving a Mega Evolution, boosting his already high special attack and speed, making him a frickin' Dragon type, and giving him Lightning Rod for an ability? Seems kinda stupid to me, but who cares? This thing is still easily capable of ripping tons of opponents apart, and really stands out as an utterly fantastic grass type. Besides, I had a really fun time using him as a kid and as a kind of adult now, so his cool and stylish demeanor really does stand the test of time for me. Now, this is a damn good type. I have to say that I surprisingly like poison types. Most notable about them is how most poison types are given pretty interesting and downright awesome designs to really encourage their use. Okay, mostly. However, since for most of the series they were only super effective against grass, and there were 4 other types that could do that super effectiveness as well, poison types really weren't that big a deal. Until fairies hit the scene. Since then, poison types have really stood their own against the competition thanks to a new strength being given to them. Poison type moves aren't insanely powerful other than Poison Jab, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave, and Gunk Shot, but their main draw is that almost every poison type move has a chance of poisoning the opponent, slowly sapping their health with each passing turn. The poison status condition is one of the most valuable of all the status conditions, and is almost a borderline necessity to have to stall out opponents with bulky Pokemon. With poison types only having 2 weaknesses that most type combinations with poison eliminate at least one of those weaknesses, a deal of resistances, and once again some badass Pokemon, poison types truly are awesome. And guys, I've already told you what my favorite poison type is. All you Zubat and Golbat haters, balls to you, because the fruit of the Zubat-Golbat labor is this glorious beast of a Pokemon. Seeing as you need to train up one of the most infamously annoying Pokemon in the series and be best friends with it, your effort pays off with one of the fastest Pokemon in the series. With an amazing 130 speed stat, you can almost every turn guarantee yourself outspeeding your opponent. And how about we complement that speed with some fantastic moves, such as Cross Poison, Acrobatics, Brave Bird, Steel Wing, X Scissor, Zen Headbutt, and even Sky Attack if you really want to use it. CROBAT has so much great potential that I've managed to take on Pokemon like Hydreigon with this thing. Yeah, this thing gets the job done. But don't worry about CROBAT being just an attacker. It can be the perfect Pokemon to annoy the crap out of all your opponents, coupling its high speed with moves like Confuse Ray, Toxic, Swagger, Hypnosis, and even Quick Guard. And despite seeming to be based around speed and partially offense, my experience with it has sort of proven to me that this thing is capable of taking a hit or two. Ignoring everything battle related that this Pokemon is capable of, just look at this thing. Holy crap, this quad-winged bat certainly poses itself to be quite the opponent. There's a reason a lot of villainous team leaders utilize this fearsome bat against you. It has a very imposing demeanor and presence, and you always feel it when this thing enters the battlefield. And just a little thing for me, I adore the idea of catching a Pokemon everyone hates, showing it that I care and love it in its weaker stages, and be rewarded with a badass as hell final evolution all because of our friendship. Ain't it nice? Let's move on and talk about a type that I'm sure everyone has used a ton of times in so many playthroughs, Psychic types. Psychic types are among one of the strongest types in all of Pokemon. I mean, back in Red and Blue, they were insanely powerful with almost no weaknesses. So much so that they had to introduce 2 new types just to make it cease from being so overpowered. And while they are more balanced, they are incredibly powerful as a type. The majority of Psychic types are hard-hitting special attackers, packing some of the hardest hitting moves in the game and typically having high speed stats to truly maximize their offensive power. They do have some downsides, like the only types Psychic types resist are fighting and themselves, and if they are hit with a super effective move, more often than not, they're going down. Of course, there are quite a lot of defensive Psychic types and some physical attacking Psychic types, most of them fall into the special attacking category. They're an incredibly powerful and fun type to utilize, but it also comes with a library of risks and consequences, and there are some Psychic types that I absolutely adore. My favorite has to go to also my favorite evolution, Espeon. One of the most awesome and cute Pokemon to come out of Gold and Silver is the Psychic type evolution of Eevee. This thing really does look so cute and cuddly with its pink color scheme and house pet-like body, but when you get to those eyes and the jewel in its head, you can tell this thing means business. Let's start off by noting that Espeon has the highest special attack of all Johto Pokemon, measuring in at 130 at base. That is kinda scary. Being another Pokemon that requires a high friendship stat as well as leveling up during the day to evolve, it's a great thing I never did that since the games I used Espeon in are ones where it's just given to me. Colosseum and XD make this so easy. Espeon's fantastic special attack, coupled with Stab Psychic, has the capability to destroy entire teams one after the other, and I adored watching my Espeon rip apart Pokemon after Pokemon with almost no resistance. Espeon's moveset, while coming with Psychic moves, was about all it could really do before Diamond and Pearl, and its moveset has grown to incorporate moves like Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam, and Signal Beam, giving it tons more capabilities to take down a variety of opponents. And if you throw in Calm Mind into that setup, it can become unstoppable. Wait, did I say its Psychic moves are the only usable moves before Diamond and Pearl? Well, I'm wrong. Because it's possible to get an Espeon that knows Bite, and since Dark was a special type before Diamond and Pearl, you have almost the perfect type coverage for Espeon. Not really, but, you know, Espeon's just such a great Pokemon. Its design, its amazing battle capability, and just everything about it is so lovable. Also, its cuteness. Ghost types as of the release of X and Y have gotten so powerful. Going from being a kinda lackluster type in early gens, since most ghost types were special attackers and Ghost was stupidly a physical type, to being resisted by almost no type thanks to Steel losing its ghost resistance, it has the potential to be called one of the greatest offensive types in the series. And only having two weaknesses to Dark and, unfortunately, itself makes them even more of a threat, as well as an immunity to the very common Fighting type and Normal as a bonus. Ghost types are pretty diverse, honestly. Some of the most well-known ghost types are fast attackers that threaten entire teams, but they also have a number of more defensive ghost types and support and annoying ghost types. The variety of ghost type Pokemon is actually quite surprising, given their diverse move pool and moves that vary on offensive and support capabilities. Anyone who's grown up with Pokemon over the years really understand what ghost types are capable of, and as the years go by, they just keep getting more and more fearsome. Also, I did a ghost monotype run of Platinum, so I kinda respect them a lot. And out of every ghost type in the series, I have to say that my favorite is the enchanting, soul-consuming light in the darkness, Chandelure. I'm certain a lot of you older Pokemon fans will question why this floating, living Chandelure is my favorite ghost type over something as cool as Gengar, but Chandelure just warms my heart more than Gengar ever did. See what I did there? First of all, Chandelure has the second highest special attack stat of all non-legendary, non-Mega Evolved Pokemon besides Blade Form Aegislash, having a base 145 special attack stat, making its brute attacking power stronger than the likes of Alakazam, Gengar, Espeon, and even outranking every single non-Mega Evolved starter. Any attack from this thing will tear holes in almost any Pokemon, and having Stab Shadow Ball that almost no type resists makes this thing incredibly threatening. Besides Shadow Ball, Chandelure has an impressive learn set, including moves like Fire Blast, Overheat, Inferno, Dark Pulse, Psychic Dream Eater, and the best coverage move to deal with Ground, Rock, and Water types, Energy Ball. In terms of what is my favourite in particular, I love raising one up. Starting with an adorable little Litwick, then into a snazzy enough looking Lampent, into this mystical and glorious ghostly figure. I mean, I love Chandelure's design. The eerie purple flames and the unblinking yellow eyes, and the way it drifts from side to side really captures the feel of a ghostly ornament. It is a bit of a long process getting one, having to get a Litwick to level 41 to evolve into Lampent, then giving Lampent a Duskstone to evolve it is a bit of a time-consuming process, but like every Pokemon you have to work to get, the powerhouse you get at the end is all worth it. Oh yeah, this thing also steals and consumes souls, leaving the body of the victims as empty husks. Kinda interesting, I guess, if not terrifying. This time I'd be a little surprising to see up so high in the list when compared to some of the others, but what the hell, the flying type. Sure, in a competitive sense or even statistic sense, some of the earlier types in this list are superior, but since Fly is such a useful and almost essential HM to getting around the world, most of the time you'll put a flying type on your team. And after going through so many playthroughs, I really have grown to like flying types. Flying types for the most part have pretty high speed stats and can be caught early in the game, giving you a decently good addition for your team, considering the plethora of bug types at the beginning of most games. On top of that, flying types are almost always paired with another type, so the benefit of its other type typically works in its favour, most of the time. Most flying types I've used have mostly managed to hold their own and show what they're made of in battle. I personally feel that as a type, flying type's best asset is their immunity to ground type attacks, making them a great counter to an Earthquake spammer on your opponent's side, and a fantastic partner to work with your own Earthquake spammer. Maybe my liking of flying types is a bit of Stockholm Syndrome, but who cares? Flying types are still awesome for me. And the best flying type of them all, Isn't it obvious? It has to be the Murica bird. A huge, beefy, bald eagle whose color scheme is literally red, white, and blue is enough for the Americas to have a new image for their mascot. I mean, goddammit, its name is based off the word bravery. Can't get any more American patriotism than that, folks. Okay then, tangent is over, so let's go over this Pokemon. While unfortunately this is a 2-stage evolution Pokemon that requires getting a Rufflet to level 54 to evolve, the result is well worth it. While perhaps not as fast as a lot of flying types, it has a decent amount of bulk and a fantastic attack stat. That attack, coupled with 2 of its 3 abilities, makes this thing a powerhouse of wartime proportions. Sheer Force removing moves additional effects to make them more powerful and defiant, raising its attack by 2 stages every time any of its stats are lowered. You'll feel the full force of America rain down on you, you cowards! The kind of moves Braviary can learn are not only impressive, but also pretty surprising. Sure, it can learn great stab moves like Return, Thrash, Aerial Ace, and Brave Bird, but also completely awesome coverage moves like Steel Wing, Shadow Claw, U-Turn, Superpower, Zen Headbutt, and most surprisingly, Rock Tomb and Rock Slide. This really is like the beefiest and manly goddamn bird in the sky, especially considering that these things can only be male. Also, their Pokédex descriptions say that they can lift cars while still in flight and will pretty much give their lives to battle to protect its friends. The more scars it has, resulting in more respect from its peers. Just goddamn! I love this thing to death for its great battle capabilities, its awesome design, and just the whole idea of this magnificent bird. Making use of one of my favorite Pokemon team just makes them all the sweeter. Fuck yeah, America. Fuck yeah. I suppose it's time to discuss one of the most popular types in the series, one that you're guaranteed to see at every tournament and any kind of battle like that, given how powerful and useful they are as a type. Dragon, the big monster of the Pokemon series, and rightfully so. With their type only having 1 resistance and 1 immunity, simply their base attacks have the potential of dealing high amounts of damage to the majority of Pokemon. Members of the type itself typically have the highest base stat totals of all Pokemon, a lot of them being legendaries or pseudo-legendaries. With a resistance to the original type trio, dragons are meant to be the mythical beasts of the Pokemon universe, and the counter to most starter Pokemon. Dragons for the most part are hard-hitting and fast, easily having the potential to sweep entire teams, giving a lot of dragons megas, increasing their power to absurdly high degrees. I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to say about the type. Dragon types are absolutely notorious, with so many powerful members and so many strengths. Luckily they were knocked down a peg in Gen 6 with fairy types, but they still kinda rule the metagame. Now, time for my favorite dragon type, and it goes to the rampaging and banished dragon who rules the distortion world, Giratina. The only legendary Pokemon you're going to see on this list, the banished dragon Giratina, is appropriate considering it is undoubtedly my favorite legendary Pokemon. It might sound a little strange compared to some others, but I can't help loving this thing. Mostly due to its backstory and design. Giratina, the powerful ruler of antimatter, banished by the creator to have dominion over dark and twisted reality as punishment for crimes against the creator. Sounds kinda familiar, right? Oh yeah, Giratina is pretty much the Lucifer of the Pokemon universe. And he sells it with that utterly dark and fiendish design his forms have. The twisted wings are tendrils with red eyes and dark figure coated in gold rings just make this renegade look amazing. In battle, this thing can do so much. It can be an impressive wall with defensive stats of 120 each with 150 HP in its altered form, or an effective physical attacker with 120 on both its offensive stats in origin form. Its diverse physical and special moveset with plenty of support and buffing moves can allow Giratina to do almost anything on the battlefield. And I do have to mention what pretty much is Giratina's signature move, Shadow Force. Consider this a ghost type equivalent of Fly or Dig, but imagine it being more powerful and being able to pass through any kind of move like Protect or Quick Guard or Wide Guard. This move is almost completely unblockable. If Giratina uses this move, you are getting hit by it. I must also point out that Giratina's battle theme, which has been playing while I've been talking about it, is one of my favorite battle themes in Pokemon. The almost total insanity of this music and the fluctuation in nearly almost every single musical element makes this sound so damn unique and so amazing to listen to. Man, I just love Giratina. And you should too. Embrace the distortion. Here's a type that was kinda terrible a bit after it was initially released, but now has really grown to be a fan favorite type, the Dark type. Before the physical special split, most Dark types were a joke, lacking in any real offensive stab moves and being relatively frail as a type. It was stupid too. I mean, how can the most common Dark type moves, Bite, Crunch, and Feint Attack, were all special attacks? How is clamping your teeth down on something not a physical attack? But come time and peril, and they exploded with usefulness. Powerful moves for both physical and special attackers, and allowing Pokemon like Tyranitar, Absol, and Houndoom to really start being a threatening force. Dark types also got a bit of a knockback from Fairy types, but Steel types lost resistance to it easily makes up for that. Dark types are pretty much the anti-Psychic. Any Psychic type that goes up against a Dark type really has to tread carefully. Dark's lack of offensive resistances also helps a large part in making them incredibly tough. Not as unresisted as Ghost, but pretty damn close. Besides that, Game Freak goes out of its way to make so many awesome looking Dark types. In aesthetic design, Dark is one of the most favored types clearly. Now, my favorite Dark type is an obvious one. You know why it's good, so I'm gonna go nuts, okay? Oh shit son, it's motherfucking Greninja! Master of the starting trio of cows, you better be sure he'll hit you so hard you'll be set soaring back into glitch-ass Gen 1! Just look at this baller-ass Pokemon. His slick and cool design, mixed with his pose and his tongue scarf, lets you know that this frog-ass ninja takes shit from no one. Ladies, none of you will be ready for this tongue. Your body is not ready! Greninja was so damn awesome that he was put in Smash Brothers before he was in a game! Yo, when you hear the Swagmaster Ribbon King croak, you better hold on to your ass, cause it's about to get fucked! His high speed stat mixed with his incredible offensive stats are so good that Alakazam and Gengar are in the corner shaking with fear, because Greninja will find them and rip their shit apart! You're not scared of him enough yet? Well, I guess you haven't been acquainted with a little something known as his protein. Dudes, with this ability, he'll be force feeding you his protein! With this ability, Greninja can be any type. No type advantage here, folks. Greninja spits on the very idea of being at a type disadvantage. With this, he gets a 1.5 boost on all his attacks, and considering this thing's move pool includes Hydro Pump, Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, Grass Knot, Extra Sensory, Acrobatics, Rock Slide, U-Turn, Low Kick, Gunk Shot, and damn near any hidden power you want, you better believe this thing's got swag. In fact, no! He's too good for swag! Swag is nothing compared to this beast. There's a reason this thing was booted into Ubers, because all the little cowards in OU were too fucking scared of him. Dragonite, done. Skarmory, no problem. Legendaries like Thundurus, Latios, and Zapdos don't come up in my kitchen without weak ass shit! Whoa. That was crazy. But yeah. Greninja's awesome. Okie dokes, let's move on. I suppose we should finally bring up another one of the starting trio of types, so let's get toasty with the Fire type. God, that was awful. Fire types are odd in a few ways. They have the second highest number of resistances in the series, yet they are one of the worst defensive types. Doesn't quite add up. Anyway, that's not important since Fire type's main draw is their, well, firepower. Fire types are based mostly on offensive power, the main objective being to tear apart your enemy with powerful attacks before they can land a substantial hit on you. Kind of the perfect type for people who are just starting out or aren't familiar with RPGs. Their power is typically accompanied by at least average or above average speed, although this is not always the case. The main drawback of fire types is their overall low defenses and weakness to water and ground, both very common types. But still, fire types are an incredibly prevalent and powerful type, especially a lot of their attacks having the chance of burning an opponent, lowering their physical attack and causing them to lose health every turn. Kind of a good compliment to the low defenses, huh? Now, my favorite fire type is a pretty obvious one, but an awesome one nonetheless. The fiery Kung Fu Master Chicken, Blaziken. Ah yes, the original firefighting starter until they decided to milk the type combo for everything it was worth. And as you would say, the original is best. Getting given one of the most adorable starter Pokemon in this series, then a mid-stage evolution that's a bit too phallic for its own good, to this awesome looking reverse KFC on steroids. Just check out his menacing talons, his mane of white hair, and a stare that warns of the impending destruction he'll cause. I've used Blaziken in so many of my playthroughs. From my childhood playing of Ruby, my newest playthrough of Sapphire, the event Blaziken from Y, and even my own competitively trained Blaziken, you can see I've gotten attached to this thing. Its main draw point is its beastly attack stat and good speed stat. Not as fast as Sceptile, but good nonetheless. packing a 120 base attack stat, and packing moves like Blaze Kick, Flare Blitz, High Jump Kick, Sky Uppercut, Brave Bird, Earthquake, Stone Edge, Shadow Claw, Night Slash, Dual Chop, and Thunder Punch. This thing can leave the smackdown on many opponents, as you would expect from a powerful fire type. And to make him even more powerful, like Sceptile, Blaziken received a Mega, being in fact the only ORAS Mega to be released properly before ORAS was released. This Mega reworks his design to somehow make him look even more threatening and boost his attack stat to even more insane proportions, and making him even more deadly with the ability Speed Boost, giving him a speed buff every single turn. In fact, regular Blaziken have Speed Boost as a hidden ability, which utterly broke the metagame for him and had him casted into Ubers with the rest of the amazing Pokemon. Being the first starter to ever be banned should give you an idea how good Blaziken is. A properly set up Blaziken is almost unstoppable, and that's why he's utterly awesome. Even after more than a decade, Blaziken still kicks ass. Hell yeah. Now we have the Steel type to talk about. Essentially, Steel types by default are meant to be walls for your opponent to break through. As of now, they have 10 resistances and 1 immunity, and as a whole, are meant to be able to take continuous hits and stay standing, which is unfortunately diminished due to its 3 weaknesses being Fire, Ground, and Fighting, all of which are fairly common types. Simply the amount of abuse Steel types are able to absorb before falling over is legitimately amazing, especially if they have various defense buffing or health restoring moves or strategies. Additionally, when paired with the right additional type, they can be even more effective. But that's not all they can do. There's also a great deal of Steel types that are just as good offensively as they are defensively, one notable example I've already discussed being Aggron. Offensive Steel types have seen more of a rise thanks to the introduction of the Fairy type, as well as some great Mega Evolutions, just giving me even more incentive to like them. Also, just look at some of these Pokemon's designs. All of these look incredibly unique and infinitely well designed. Steel has grown from being a strict wall kind of type to being a perfect blend of defensive walls and ungodly attackers, and I love it for that. But while Steel unfortunately may not be my favorite type, it sports my absolute favorite Pokemon. Good lord, I adore this Pokemon. The very first time I saw this thing was when I first battled Steven in Ruby, and it tanked a Blaze Kick from my Blaziken, my best Pokemon of my team, then one-shotted it with Psychic. In that moment, I knew I wanted one, and when I received my Beldum from Steven and it got it to a Metagross, it was my favorite for life. Look at this thing! An entirely metallic quadruped with spiked legs, an awesome color scheme, and the cold determined stare of a powerful machine. Absolutely glorious. Having a glorious type combo of Steel Psychic made this walking supercomputer a killing machine, until X and Y came along, but whatevs. This thing can take hits all day and dish them out twice as powerful. With astounding 135 base attack and 130 base defense, as well as 95 special defense and 90 special defense, Metagross has no bad stat, other than possibly speed, which is base 70. Couple all these stats with the ability Clear Body that prevents its stats from going down, and you make this thing almost unstoppable. While Clefairy is also able to learn it, I consider Meteor Mash to be Metagross' signature move. A hard-hitting physical Steel type move with a 10% chance of raising its already attack stat even higher. As well as Meteor Mash, Metagross has an awesome move pool, including Zen Headbutt, Bullet Punch, Hammer Arm, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Ice Punch, Agility, and Magnet Rise. And if I can be honest with you, one of the happiest moments of last year was the reveal of Metagross' Mega Evolution, and using one, it does not disappoint. Buffing every single one of his already great stats, mostly speed to make him a fast and deadly sweeper, and giving up Clear Body for Tough Claws, making all of its truly threatening moves even more powerful. Also, look at this thing, it's totally amazing! I just love Metagross. That's it. Favorite Pokemon. Done. Move on. My top 3 favorite Pokemon types, and we'll start this off with ground types. In my eyes, as soon as ground types removed themselves of being anchored to rock types, they immediately became so much more effective. Ground types naturally have impressive offensive stats, their sheer brute force power being one of the real drawing points. That coupled with usually bulky defense stats allow them to be truthful threats on the battlefield, if it weren't for their typically low special defense and weakness to water, grass, and ice. Kind of a serious drawback, but like hell if that's holding them back. Ground types have the capabilities to tear shit apart. If there's one thing ground types are known for, it's goddamn Earthquake. one of the most effective and powerful moves in the entire series, even after 19 years, still being an easy go-to move for any physical attacker. And it's so easy to spam it! They actually had to invent a held item to make things immune from Earthquake. That's how fearsome it is. On top of all these great battlefield things about them, also check out some ground type designs. So many of these guys are straight up ballers of the Pokemon world. Despite having so much amazing and fearsome ground types to choose from, my favorite has to be the subterranean master burrower of the Unova region, Excadrill. Now this is a true mole Pokemon. Compare Digltt's design of oval on oval on oval to Excadrill's red streak, razor sharp claws and head spike, and its fierce and deadly expression, and you can tell which one is superior. Being a ground steel type gives them a kind of unique typing that only one other Pokemon has, but unlike Steelix, Excadrill is the complete opposite, in fact having the lowest defense stats of all steel types. Might sound like a bit of a hindrance, but Excadrill makes up for it in spades. With an absurd 135 attack stat, right from its introduction, Excadrill was known as a threat. Having a Pokemon with an attack stat that large, and coupling it with Stab Earthquake is bad enough, but considering this thing also learns Iron Head, Brick Break, Rock Slide, X-Scissor, Poison Jab, Submission, Sword Stance, and Hone Claws, this thing is one of the most fearsome beasts to come out of Black and White. And like Blaziken, Excadrill was banned from tournaments in Gen 5 for one of its abilities, one that wasn't even a hidden ability, Sand Rush. With this ability, Excadrill's base 88 speed stat skyrockets to an insane 176 base in a sandstorm, giving it almost complete control of the battlefield, made even more threatening that sandstorms caused by other Pokemon's abilities were permanent until X and Y. But since weather conditions have been nerfed as of now, Excadrill loses that dominance, yet still remains an awesome part of the metagame, thanks to its hidden ability Mold Breaker, allowing it to hit the cowardly Levitators with a well-placed Earthquake. Like Scrafty, Chandelure, and Braviary, I used Excadrill on my favorite team and, as you would guess, I loved it. This thing is just so damn strong that almost nothing in Unova can stand up to it, and I use that to my advantage. Excadrill fainted so few times throughout my whole playthrough and ripped apart so many teams with just brute power, and that's why he's my favorite. You just can't not love this thing. I'm guessing from my XD playthrough and my name as a whole that you guys might have figured out what my favorite type is. Well, let's see if you're right. My second favorite Pokemon type is Electric. By process of elimination, you know what my favorite type is, but let's forget that for now and talk about something electrifying instead. Whoa, that was forced. Electric as a type is most probably the fastest of all the types, which really is their strongest trait. The majority of electric types are capable of outspeeding almost every other Pokemon in the series. That speed advantage amplified even more with the move Thunder Wave that most electric types can learn, paralyzing the opponent to ensure they outspeed their opposition. Coupled with the speed stat is typically a pretty good special attack stat to really show off their power with some incredibly powerful moves that also typically have a chance of paralysis. The significant problem with electric types is that they are usually not defensive in the slightest, one decently hard hit being enough to knock them over. They luckily only have one weakness, to ground, but they are still pretty frail as a type. But their frailty is compensated massively by their attacking potential and their crazy high speed, making them an excellent type for me. And my favorite electric type is probably an odd choice, but whatever. I love this thing. The Ella Spider Pokemon once again from the Unova region, Galvantula. I know that not many people would pick this thing to be their favorite, but just look at this thing. It's absolutely adorable. I don't even know how to describe it. Just thinking about those big round eyes, the bright yellow body, and just something mysterious makes me find this thing so adorable. It doesn't know that this is its pre-evolution. Now on to actual stuff about Galvantula. Galvantula has a unique typing of Electric Bug right off the bat, eliminating its combined weaknesses of ground and flying, leaving only fire and rock left, which are still kinda deadly to it. While Galvantula, like both its types, is pretty damn frail, it makes up for it with a base 108 speed stat and a 97 base special attack stat. Okay, I know that isn't much compared to some numbers I've listed on other Pokemon, but whatever, I still love this thing. I would say out of most electric types, Galvantula is one of the best users of Thunder where there is no setup involved, thanks to its ability Compound Eyes, which increases the move accuracy by 30%, making up for its accuracy loss so it can hit with insanely powerful attacks. This thing's moveset isn't too expansive, what it does get is pretty damn good, such as Bug Buzz for additional stab damage and Energy Ball or Giga Drain for type coverage. Like a lot of Pokemon, however, I love this little spider because of my experience with it. I use it on my favorite team that I've mentioned before, and its power was incredibly helpful, especially considering I managed by some miracle to have hidden power ground for some of the best type coverage I could ask for. And one more thing, I have an EV trained Galvantula with a typical sticky web setup, but there's one little thing about it that makes it awesome. It's a shiny Galvantula. I so lucked out with it. I just love Galvantula. There probably are some better electric types, but I just love this cute little spider. Whatevs. As you would have guessed, my favorite Pokemon type is Water. Like Flying, you are kinda forced to have a Water type on your team to utilize Surf, which is essential to getting through almost every Pokemon game. But unlike Flying, Water types have utterly no chance of being a burden on your team. As a type, Water just appeals to me as being the best type. Pokemon of this type can pretty much do anything they want to do. They can attack physically, they can attack specially, they can be the Speedster of your team, they can defend physically or specially, they can wall and stall, they can play support, almost any role in your team a Water type can fill in for. Water types only have two weaknesses, Grass and Electric, and I discount Grass a lot of the time since almost every Water type Pokemon can learn an Ice, Flying, or Bug type move to take them down, leaving only Electric as a threat, and even then Water types can hold their own. And on the offensive are destructive masters of their own, given their powerful stabs and diverse movesets. Water types have very few flaws and are easily in my eyes the best of the starting trio of types. And the designs of Water types can range from being awesome, to beautiful, to fearsome, to mysterious, to weird, and just almost every possible adjective. I adore absolutely everything about Water types, and it would be appropriate that my favorite Water type is also my favorite starter Pokemon. Samurott, the Samurai Sea line of the Unova region, is my favorite Pokemon of my favorite type. Look, I know that Greninja's the faster water starter, Blastoise is the bulkier water starter, Swarmer's the more physically offensive water starter, and Empoleon's the more specially offensive starter, but I don't care. Samurott's my favorite. First of all, his concept is awesome. Like I said, he's a samurai sea lion who takes the shells attached to his body and uses them as blades. That impressive goddamn horn is also as threatening, but not as threatening as that beastly facial hair. On top of how awesome his final design looks, I can't help but love his evolution process too. Starting out as an adorable little Oshawott, then becoming a cool and collected Dewott, before growing fully into this impressive creature I have as my favorite. Now onto battling. Samurott may not outclass other water starters in any department, but that does not stop him from being a great Pokemon on the battlefield. With an attack set of 100 and a special attack of 108, Samurott can work excellently as a mixed attacker. Obviously he can have stabs like Hydro Pump, Surf, Aqua Tail, and Waterfall, but like all water types has a great move pool to go along with them, such as Ice Beam, Blizzard, Dig, Aerial Ace, X-Scissor, Grass Knot, Air Slash, Night Slash, Iron Tail, Superpower, and Mega Horn. With a moveset like that, Samurott can handle almost any opponent he comes across. On top of that, he is enough of a bulk to be able to shrug off a couple hits without letting it slow him down too much. Like these past few have been, Samurott was a Pokemon on my absolute favorite team. And moreover, he was my starter of my playthrough of my favorite game. He took on so much, and at every turn it never let me down, even when it was at a huge disadvantage. Samurott may not be the best starter Pokemon ever, but he sure as hell is my favorite. And with that, the last countdown of PokeMonth is over. Thanks everyone for checking it out and showing your support. I'm the Speedster, and in this entire month's worth of videos weren't enough to say it, I love Pokemon. See you guys all next time.